Welcome to the Encinitas Chamber Chat Live podcast. I'm Carol Knight with the Encinitas Chamber of Commerce. With the help from my talented friends at Max Deluxe, we will showcase the many aspects and unique qualities of the Encinitas community. Whether it be focusing on local business owners, advice from experts, or highlighting some of the local gems Encinitas has to offer, we hope you'll find this podcast informational and entertaining. Welcome to Chamber Chat Live. Before recording the podcast, I silenced my phone, and after it's over, I will have a momentary panic. How many emails came in? How many texts did I miss? How many calls did I miss? And I am not alone. The average American checks their phone 150 times a day and spends 90% of their time indoors. To talk to us about being connected in a digital age and how we can all benefit from being unplugged, I have with me today author and co-founder of Nature Unplugged, Sebastian Slovin. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Carol.
Wonderful to have you here this morning. So I want to talk a little bit about your background, but let's talk about Nature Unplugged first. It sounds like we should be doing it. We should be living it. What is Nature Unplugged?
Yep. So Nature Unplugged, we're a nonprofit organization, part of the Chamber. Excited to be members of that. We're based out of Encinitas here in San Diego, but do work all over the place. And our mission is really about wellness in the digital age. So the way I like to say it is helping folks create healthier boundaries with their devices and screens, and then using nature as a preventative mental health resource. So we do a variety of things. We do educational workshops and trainings, and then we do guided nature outings, things like that. That's kind of an overview of what we do, but yeah.
So have you always been in this space? You grew into this space? You saw a need? You went to school for it?
Kind of a mix, yeah. The mental health stuff has always been really important to me and something that's near and dear to my heart since I was quite young. I've had a sort of mixed background. Most of my work prior to this was in health and wellness. Always really loved nature, and so the kind of combination of things, got me interested, basically.
All right, and you're also an author.
Yep, yeah. I've got a few books in the mix. I'll show them later, but I have a children's book called The Adventures of Enu. I won't give all the details. It's basically it's the Nature Unplugged sort of message, getting outside, the benefits of unplugging and getting outside. One that's more about mental health. It has to do with my dad, called Ashes in the Ocean. And then I have a book that I co-authored with my co-founder and wife, Sonia Mohammed, called Experience Nature Unplugged, A Guide to Wellness in the Digital Age, which is basically a deep dive on all our Nature Unplugged curriculum. So it's kind of like a step-by-step guide on how to do some of the stuff. So I'll share some of the stuff that in the book too.
All right. So let's talk about that. I mean, the problem you're addressing is really everyone is just so connected to their devices.
Yep. That's the problem for sure. And, as you said in the intro, the average person checks their phone 150 times a day, spending, the average adult in the U.S. spends 93% of their time indoors. There's a lot of stats. I think probably you've experienced this, right? You're just for yourself or, you're out in a restaurant or out and about and people are locked into their devices, And I want to get into that a little bit, but I kind of want to share first, if it's okay, kind of why the mental health stuff is so important to me.
Yes.
I kind of alluded to it, but so I was born and raised, grew up here in San Diego. Fortunate to grow up in La Jolla, near the beach. Both my parents really loved nature and getting outside, and so I had super fortunate in a lot of ways to grow up near the beach and then have parents that, got me out there and into the water a lot. My dad in particular was a super amazing swimmer, like one of the best swimmers in the world during his prime. And he's an interesting person because from the outside looking in, he had everything going for him, like super good, really good swimmer, successful business person, all these things. But behind the scenes, he struggled with his own mental health challenges. But this is back in the day. This isn't,
No one was really addressing that, let alone a man.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally. And he was sort of the epitome of the sort of stereotypical, like has his act together all the time, no vulnerability, anything like that. Like he was, like, to me, like a superhero.
Right. Sort of model dad, model family.
Model dad, model family, and then behind the scenes he has these challenges, right? And he does his best not to show the world. That builds up and builds up and builds up, and eventually becomes too much for him, and he takes his own life when I was 6 years old, so super young. And, obviously that really changed the family dynamic, changed my childhood. It seemed like I went from having a really kind of sort of like carefree childhood to one that was completely different. All of a sudden, we were in a really bad financial position, so my mom was gone a lot. I have a younger sister, so I became like a caretaker to her. Mm-hmm. And so everything changed. And I was very aware from a young age that, there was something sort of, I don't want to say wrong with the way my dad died, but I knew something was like up about it.
Right, because at 6 you didn't really have a clear understanding.
No, yeah.
And probably not a lot of insight
very
into
little,
it. Yeah,
6-year-old. Very little insight, but I knew, my mom did tell me he took his own life. So she said, but I didn't really fully get it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I knew there was something up because no one in my family really talked about him after that.
Talked about it.
And no one talked about suicide. No one talked about my dad. So my dad was just like kind of disappeared. And it was this sort of elephant in the room type deal. And I was super aware of that. And as I got a little bit older and I knew what suicide was, I had all these questions like, why did it happen? What's the deal? Am I sort of genetically, I probably didn't use these words, but is there something wrong with me by association?
Right. So are you predisposed to?
Yeah. And I did kind of the same thing my dad did, which was not talk about it. And so I kind of did my best to, hold everything together. And that didn't go well for my mental health. So I struggled with my own mental health stuff a lot as a teenager, thinking about suicide, thinking that was like my only way out if things got bad, right? And then on the flip side, I did have this, going back to this like deep connection with the ocean that my dad and my parents instilled in me when I was young. And so if things got really bad and turbulent on land, I knew that getting to the beach or getting to the ocean was sort of like my place of refuge.
Yeah.
And so I spent a lot of time outside. It became sort of, again, the place to sort of unwind, decompress. My dad was also cremated. We spread his ashes in the ocean at La Jolla Cove. And so I sort of, regardless of whether I was at the Cove or not, it was like a time to reconnect with my dad.
Right.
I became obsessed with it. I got really into bodyboarding, which is, if you're familiar with, it's the same thing as boogie boarding.
Right.
Probably hip to it.
Yeah.
It's like, I like to say it's the less cool version of surfing. If you're a surfer,
but you excelled at it.
I excelled at it, I got really into it. Surfers always talk smack about bodyboarding, so I have this thing. But anyway, spent all the time in the water, got really into bodyboarding, and eventually started to compete and went pro, which is, can't make a ton of money being a pro bodyboarder, but you can do some stuff. I'm going long, but
it's all right.
The bodyboarding thing gave me an opportunity to do a lot of travel, and I went to Australia. My dad died in Perth in Australia. We were I won't get into the details, but we were living there for a time and came back here. He went back there and died. So up until this point, I hadn't really talked about it. This is like in my teens. I had an opportunity to go back to Australia when I was 17. Ended up connecting with my dad's very good friend, and I was nervous about going there because I felt like this guy was going to talk to me about my dad. And sure enough, like the first day I was there, he asked me, he was like, let's go for a walk. Within 5 minutes, he brings up my dad, and I was sort of freaking out. And he eventually shared on this walk that his dad died by suicide when he was a kid. So his dad took his own life too. And he was basically like, look, you got to face this. The short version of what he said was he had spent a lot of time running away from dealing with it, didn't deal with it till he was in his like late 30s. And he's like, you got to face this. And so that conversation was a game changer for me. And since then, since the age of 17, I sort of have been talking about mental health, talking about suicide, and learning as much as I can. That's a long-winded version to say, like, you know, the two big takeaways from that were, I knew that when I grew up, I wanted to do something helping people with mental health, and I wanted to do something getting folks back out into nature, because that was so important, like life-saving to me.
Right.
So that's essentially what Nature Unplugged is like, that's the backstory.
The core of that. Core of that. So did your sister and your mom take some of that same approach that you were taking? Were they trying to address it, or they weren't talking about it either? Were you able to share some of your learnings with them early on?
It's a great question, and not really. I mean, this is maybe, we could do a to be continued podcast, but you know, I think with suicide and things like that, you know, everyone has a very different, it impacts everyone so differently within a family, you know what I mean? And so this was my approach. I certainly shared some of the stuff with my mom and sister, and they've taken some of it, you know, maybe not 100% of it, but it was, you know, I think everyone has their own unique.
So you were growing up at the age where no one was really talking about mental health, let alone suicide. We had a Rising Star breakfast this morning where the Chamber honors and recognizes 5 seniors from the San Diego Union High School District every month at a breakfast.
Nice.
And all these stories, they are so moving, but every single kid talks about the importance of mental health and mental health on campus and being inclusive. And that's across the board. It's a running theme from all the breakfasts that we do. So I don't know if it's reality or we're just getting these kids who are really talking about it, but it seems like, at least at the high school level, there's some awareness and some effort and compassion and discussion about the importance of mental health. Yeah,
I mean, it's really wonderful to hear. It certainly wasn't the case when I was in high school. It certainly wasn't the case when my dad was growing up, I mean, even more so. And I think we're trending in the right direction, right? You know, it's interesting. I think, you know, shared the backstory, and I think that when it comes to mental health in this country and a lot of the developed world, we do a pretty good job. This is a generalization. So we do a pretty good job, I think, at helping folks when they're in crisis. Like if there's a clear need, there's a lot of suicide resources, suicide prevention resources, and one. So I like to sort of imagine like a river going through the forest, big waterfall, water flowing beyond it. And, you know, these are folks that in this sort of metaphor, like right at the edge of the river, right at the edge of the waterfall, rather. And I think we do a good job of helping those people out. And my thought with Nature Unplugged was wanting to do more to address the preventative stuff, to give people more resources and bring this conversation into the mix, even if you're not having like a total crisis, right? And so that's, again, a lot of our focus at Nature Unplugged. And I'll add that it's not my main gig, but I do a lot of volunteering and work on the side in the world of suicide prevention, more like in crisis intervention. And again, doing that work, I was like, oh, there's such energy and focus there. I was like, you know, what if we bring the same energy, the same focus to what we call upstream stuff, for the more preventative stuff. So it's great to hear that the kids are
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the upstream stuff. What programs are you offering? And let's delve into a little bit about the essence of Nature Unplugged. Yeah,
totally. So basically, there's a few different things. We do a few different things. Everything is with the same mission in mind. It's this preventative mental health, wellness in the digital age. So I think, first of all, we create resources. Again, my background was more in, doing the surfing stuff, outdoor adventure type stuff. Sonia's background is more in education. So when we connected a while back, we started to, I was purely doing, the early version of Nature Unplugged was purely just unplugged outdoor adventures around San Diego County. We'd do like a surf plus a hike, or yoga plus a surf, or some sort of version of that. Devices put away. And then she came into the mix, and we started to build out some curriculum, some little activities for people to do, to reflect on their, how do their screens and devices impact them, and that kind of stuff. So we've developed this full curriculum. So we have books, we have workbooks, conversation cards, things like that. So we develop resources. That's one thing. We do educational workshops and trainings. So it's a way to basically get the core of our curriculum out. We have two different versions of that. There's an introductory program called the Nature Unplugged Advocate Workshop, 60-minute program and really made for a wide variety of audiences, parents, students, educators, just to get kind of like tips and tools and resources to put into practice right away, and a kind of a little bit more of a deep dive into, why are we so connected to our devices, like what's going on behind the scenes.
Right.
And then we have a 2-day train the trainer, called educator training, that's more focused toward educators and mental health professionals. That's kind of the
all right. So let's go back to the why are we connected?
Yeah.
I can scroll through social media. I mean, the people are really addicted to their phones. I was lucky enough when my son was younger. You can get a cell phone when you go to middle school, right?
Yeah.
It's probably unheard of right now.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's 21 now, so I'm sure that doesn't really apply anymore. I mean, he's on his phone all the time. But I do think early on that really helped him be more adept socially.
Yeah.
I mean, we never had. I sound like I'm an old fart here, but we never had devices at the table. I mean, we played at restaurants, wherever it was. We were having a conversation. He was interacting with guests, or we were playing tic-tac-toe or hangman.
Yeah.
I mean, it was it just kills me when I see those folks out, and that's the first thing they do, especially at 2.5 or 3.
Yeah. It's a great question. It's a big problem, and it's a complicated problem. But the where to begin here? I think there's more and more people talking about this. When we started Nature Unplugged in 2012, technically, the early version, and we're starting to talk about it. There was not really anyone talking about it, but sort of in the last, I'd say 5 years or so, there's been more and more people talking about it. I think one thing that's interesting before diving in, this is problem related, but if you look at, one of the reasons I got so interested in this topic was that, I was, studying, reading up on mental health trends and things like that. And starting about 2012, 2011, we see this increase, predominantly with young people, but it's kind of across the board, increase in depression, anxiety, self-harm, suicide, all on the rise. And there's a professor of psychology, actually at San Diego State, but she's sort of world-renowned, named Jean Twenge, who is the world's leading researcher on generational trends, and she was probably the first person to clearly see this. She saw these trends, and she's like, something's going on, and she dove into it deeper, and she basically connected it to a couple things: social media, and social media going from were you on MySpace? Did you ever use MySpace?
No, I'm a really late adapter.
Okay, that's cool. You're on TikTok. You just went straight to TikTok.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you think back to early Facebook or MySpace, if you or people listening
MySpace,
were aware of it, it was pretty static. Like it was basically like a glorified address book. You had your friends on there. You could post pictures, things you liked, things you didn't like, food you liked, whatever. It wasn't like people were going on MySpace 4, 5, 10, 15 times a day. It was like a couple times a week or a handful of times a week. Then in 2012, I think, Facebook adds the like button and Twitter adds retweets. And that's the beginning of a major shift in social media, where it goes from this thing that's that people are like, I keep in touch with people, I check it, a few times a week.
Right.
To then you get all of a sudden real-time feedback on like, who liked my photo out there? Are people into this or not into it? And then people are commenting or not commenting, and people are like posting stuff, then checking and then checking. And then because of the like button, you get a personalized feed now based on what you like and and how you interact with the platform, right? So you get, and that's the beginning of the algorithm thing that is now like super advanced and sophisticated, with TikTok being sort of probably the most intense version of that. But basically, they're connecting. So 2012 is also 2011, 2012 was the majority of people own smartphones in America. So that like everyone's got smartphones, or more people than not have smartphones. Social media starts becoming a lot more personalized, a lot more addictive. Those two things are kind of the beginning, and what researchers sort of focus on. And it's just sort of ramped up and up and up and up. And with, I'll stop because I can kind of go on and on. But there's very little, at least in the beginning, very little oversight from the social media companies. They could just do whatever they wanted. There was very little, a 13-year-old, 12-year-old, 11-year-old could sign up without any parental consent. And it's it's wild. I mean, there's a lot of now research, if you've ever seen The Social Dilemma on Netflix, is a good example. They do a good job. The whole thing is basically the like umbrella term for this is called the attention economy. And the idea here is like, the more time we're on a particular app or platform, the more money they're making through advertising dollars. Does that sort of make sense?
Yeah, all right. So that's the problem.
That's the problem, yeah.
All right, so I know you have a young one at home.
Yeah.
So what, and this is a general question, I mean, because he is young, but for the middle schoolers, the teenagers, and I was actually thinking even employees, putting the business hat on.
Yeah, for sure.
What kind of guardrails are you going to put in place, and what guidelines and tips would you share to make sure that there is a balance, again, keeping that mental health top of mind?
Totally. Yeah. Well, I want to preface this by saying I don't really believe there's a one-size-fits-all approach to this. It would be great if I could just be like, I can give some tips that are general tips, but I do understand that every family dynamic is different. Every work has different demands. Family has different demands. So I think for listeners or viewers out there, or for you, take what works for you and you disregard what doesn't work. But I think there are some general parameters. And we're going to be, so our little guy, his name is Sai, he's 15 months. I'm going to be pretty hardcore with him. You know what I mean? So I can share sort of more what I'll plan to do. And there's a balance, right? Because I think if you go, I sort of think about it's like this is a dopamine hit. For kids, for adults.
Right.
A little bit like sugar, like a little bit of like a sugar hit. I don't know if you've had, like if you knew kids growing up whose families went zero sugar on them, and then they go over to their friend's house and they go just totally mental. Eat like 40 Oreos or something like that, So I think it's like finding some like middle ground here.
Right, what the balance is, yeah.
I think there's certainly now like research that shows like nothing before 2 years old, which, again, I get it. It's very tempting to want to be like, check out the iPad for a little bit. But I think that, that developing brain is better to, my recommendation would be no screens or anything for the really young ones.
Right.
I mean, I think we have four sort of core tips that we recommend. This could be for like, kids, adults, families. I'll share them. You may be doing some of these. You kind of talked about this, but one is, I think it's really important to create a digital curfew. So it's like sort of self-explanatory, but it's a time of the evening where you put your devices to bed before you go to bed. And we recommend at least an hour before you go to bed. So you go to bed at 11, devices are to bed by 10. And then doing the same thing in the morning. So a lot of people, I think it's more common to do it in the evening, but I also think it's really important to have a little bit of a buffer in the morning to have just some time for like a morning routine or something before you get blasted with notifications and stuff like that.
Make a mental note of that.
Yeah. And that doesn't have to be an hour, but maybe it's whatever you can do, like 20 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. So digital curfew, because related to that, if you do a deeper dive into the research, the mental health impact from social media, screen time, probably the biggest one, and particularly for young people, is protecting sleep. So there's so many young people people of all ages out there that are, interacting with social media or some app right up to bed, phones right by the bedroom or under the pillow or whatever. And it's just an ongoing thing, and sleep's hugely disrupted. Right.
And I would relate that to work as well and checking emails and things like that. Because I'll get home and I'll get on my personal email because I haven't had a chance to do that during the day. But then like before I go to bed, sometimes I check work email. And there's, not more often than not, but occasionally there's that one email and then I can't sleep because it's on my mind. Either I need to address it in the morning, something I've missed, someone's mad, sometimes it's nice, but it just gets my brain all going again. And it's not going on the work front either.
Totally. Yeah, it's absolutely true. Whether it's work or also, I won't, again, dive back into the problem, but the way, a really short thing, is the way the whole algorithm is set up is by engagement. It's like fueled by engagement. And engagement doesn't necessarily mean like super peaceful stuff or positive stuff. More often than not, it's like things that are really aggravating or like inflammatory. Right. So you get stuff that's like whatever you're, let's say politically, let's say whatever you're left leaning, you get stuff like the far end of the end, or whatever whatever end you're on.
Something's going to get your goat. Yeah,
you're going to get something that's on the total, because that's more engaging. It's like a car crash. You're like, what's going on here? It's fascinating, and it's human nature.
Right.
Work. Whether it's work in the light, and so even if it's more neutral stuff, the light, like it's not conducive to sleep.
Right.
So that's one, digital curfew. The other one that's related is, this can be hardcore, so just bear with me. Okay, brace yourself. Now, is no tech in the bedroom.
No tech in the bedroom.
No tech in the bedroom. So we advocate for zero tech in the bedroom, or as little as possible. Like, and I mean like, screen, smart tech.
Right.
And I often share this one, and someone says, that's a great idea. I like that concept. However, I use my phone as my alarm clock. And do you know what I say to them?
Right. Get an alarm clock.
Get an alarm clock. That's exactly right. Yeah, there's like a lot of amazing basic alarm clocks, Amazon or wherever.
I still got my old one. Yeah.
You're preaching to the choir here.
Yeah.
So one of the things is, right, your phone's your alarm clock. You potentially get notifications, or even if you don't get notifications, you wake up to your alarm, and then all of a sudden you get your notifications. Right. You're not really able to intentionally start your day. It's being dictated for you.
Because you hear that,
Yeah, whether it's the news or work or social media or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's two. Digital curfew, no tech in the bedroom.
Okay.
Another one is scheduling even little windows of unplugged time throughout your day. Because the real basic version of, for our brains, like prefrontal cortex, it's exhausting. Like all the screens and all, like just we're not sort of geared for it as much as we're doing it. So just like little breaks, whether it's reading a physical book or a magazine or Sudoku or whatever, tic-tac-toe you mentioned, like more analog things. Right. If you can get outside and have a little like unplugged break outside, that's a win, like a win-win. Because I haven't talked about nature time yet, but that's sort of the best counterbalance. So scheduling some little unplugged time, because it's very common that folks at work or school, like they're on the screen all day, and they take a break by like opening a new tab or looking at a smaller screen. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's not really mentally a break. Okay, so schedule unplugged time. Okay. And then another one is find or create a home for your phone. So that's just a place, it could be at home or in the office, where your phone lives when you're not intentionally using it. Like a little cubby or a charging station or anything at all, really. It doesn't matter. It could be like a little box, but
so it's not just in your pocket.
It's not just in your pocket,
hanging on the coffee table, whatever. It is sort of like, out of sight.
Yeah, out of sight, and you're more intentional about it. You know what I mean? It's a little bit more like a landline phone. You don't have to be hardcore. You can have it with you sometimes, but it's just like a place where your phone lives. Right. When you're not using it. Right. So those are four like across the board tips. There's lots of other ones, but those are some ways to get started.
All right, very good. Yeah. I appreciate those, and I think again, putting the business hat on and being a manager, I think it's really, I'm always encouraged the team to go out and take a walk around on there, whatever. I mean, we're in a business park, but walk around the parking lot or whatever it is. Go out and sit on the grassy knoll across from the office and just chill for a little while. Yeah. We're not that far from Moonlight Beach, so I find myself driving over there and just, looking out of the water for a little while. Yeah. Not very often. I got to do it more. But every time I do it, I'm like, all right, this is what I need to be doing on a regular basis.
100%. And I think we haven't talked about that, but the most powerful antidote to screen time is nature time. And this is not like mind-blowing stuff that nature is good for us. There's a ton of research on the benefits, both from a physical and mental health perspective. But there's research that shows that just 5 minutes outside, and this is done like in an urban park, urban green space setting, is enough to boost mood and positive emotions and things like that. So you don't need, this is what one thing we're really passionate about is getting nature wherever you can. Like it's great if you have the means or the time to do a big camping trip or go somewhere like epic, but you don't really have to get the benefits I mean, we live in a place that it's pretty epic all around, so that's nice.
Right.
But even just urban park, stepping outside, even if it's in more like an industrial space, like fresh air, if you can see the sky, there's benefits. There's mental health benefits that come from that.
Yeah, and I mean, we do live in a wonderful place, but it's also because it's around us all the time, I don't think we necessarily take advantage of it.
Yeah,
you know?
No, that's a
we
good
take
point.
it for granted, but we don't necessarily take advantage of it.
Yeah, totally. It's a really good point that sometimes you don't know how epic or amazing it is until you go somewhere else for a little bit and come back. But I will say, just a little fun fact about San Diego County is the most biodiverse county in the lower 48 states. So meaning we have the most, types of animals and plants and stuff like that. Because it's a big county, but we have so many different, like biomes, and so we have the beach, lagoons,
right, the desert, and
hills,
mountains,
mountains,
right,
and all sorts of
So there's no excuse not to be outside.
There's no excuse in San Diego. We're in the best spot. Yeah.
All right. So you obviously the way you're talking and the way Nature Unplugged is positioned, you're helping, but you're also connecting. Are you trying to connect? Obviously, clients with nature, groups of people with nature. I know you're doing a lot of that. We had young professionals at the beach last month, and what was that response? And did they have some good takeaways from that experience?
I think so. Yeah, that was a great to partner with the young professionals, and So again, we have our core, resources, education, guided nature outings, and then mixing in, if you can, that was an example of hosting just a meet and greet. What's the term for that? I'm having a blank. Just a social meetup thing. But instead of at a bar, I mean, there's not anti-bar, but doing it outside, doing it at the beach. And I think I think people really responded well to it. There's a different vibe. It's less uptight a little bit, and not that a bar is intense, but I think people connected really well in a different way, and it's a win-win. You're connected with new people, talking about business, and watching the sunset in a beautiful place.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you have some. All right, I have two questions.
Yeah. Talk to me.
All these education initiatives and curriculum that you have. How would I be able to tap into that? How are you getting the word out that it's there and available?
Yeah.
Let's talk about like even the San Diego Union High School District.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you get into those schools? How do you get into the elementary schools even and start that conversation?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's an interesting challenge too. A lot of our stuff has been word of mouth. Okay. We do work with an organization, a community organization like, Boys and Girls Club, and they have a good experience. We connect with other Boys and Girls Clubs, or we work with the school, and that's largely been our, means of growing. It's an interesting sort of conundrum, because social media is obviously a good place to tell people about what's going on.
Right. So unplug, but check our website first.
Unplug, but check our website first. Exactly. We're on there. It's not anti-tech.
No, right.
I probably should have said this earlier on, but it's more, be intentional with how you're using it. You know what I mean? I think there's certainly a lot of good information and resources on the internet, on social media, but it's going in really intentionally. So we do have social media and that kind of presence. But yeah, largely it's been word of mouth. I think, that's our bigger picture aim, is to get into some of the bigger school districts in the county. We've done some work with San Diego Unified School District. We've done more work with private and charter schools. There's just like less, like red tape.
Red tape?
Yeah. So that's, a way that we're doing it. One thing I'll do a shout out about this also, at the end, but we do so we're a nonprofit. We try and make it so, we can do provide these educational resources and workshops and stuff without charge. We do, we go after grants and other things like that. And we do a big fundraiser once a year. It's coming up. It's in October. It's a Hike-A-Thon. So I can share more about that. But that's also been a great way to get the word out. The Hike-A-Thon has grown. We started 4 years ago just in San Diego. And it's not like an in-person event, so you can do it wherever you are.
Oh, all right. Okay.
So if you're, like traveling or whatever, you can participate. So it's grown, and now it's basically we have folks throughout North America in different cities across North America, U.S. and Canada, participating, and that's been a really great way to promote our work. And now we're doing fulfilling services in different cities outside of San Diego as well.
Wow, that is fantastic. So when is the Hike-A-Thon a certain day, a certain month?
It is a certain month, so it's the entire month of October.
Okay.
So they're basically the general deal is like two main goals. One is it's a wellness initiative. So it's like the primary goal is we want to get people out hiking and walking more than they otherwise would in October. The second goal, right, as I mentioned, is a fundraiser, and so raising funds for our services in San Diego and in other cities. So what's cool about it?
So what does that look like, the fundraising aspect?
Yeah. So what's cool is that there's no obligation to fundraise, and it's free to enter.
Okay.
So you can register for free, but it's like you maybe participated in a Hike-A-Thon or something like that. You could donate yourself $1 per mile or some monetary amount per mile, or a friend or family member could sponsor you. Mm-hmm. And so the idea would be, I register. Registration starts September 9th, but the first day to hike is October. So October 1st through 31st. Mm-hmm. Hike as much as you want. You can set a goal. Let's say it's 30 miles in the month, and or you could try and get a friend or family member to donate $1 per mile. And if you hit your goal, then they donate, and the funds go specifically to our resources and educational workshops and trainings and things in the community or in the city that it's raised. So we track, so let's say we have a team in LA, we track that, and then the following year we'll go and provide services in Los Angeles County.
Hi, I'm Sebastian.
And I'm Sonia.
And we're the founders of Nature Unplugged.
Oh, you said you were going to say we're excited to tell you about the Hike-A-Thon.
I thought you were going to. And we're excited to tell you about our upcoming Hike-A-Thon that's happening this October.
The Nature Unplugged Hike-A-Thon is a wellness initiative and a fundraising event. It's meant to inspire people of all ages and abilities to get outside and experience the outdoors more than they normally would. The funds we raised will be used to bring Nature Unplugged's preventative mental health programming to communities across North America.
So we're going to lead hikes here in San Diego, but there's going to be hikes going on across North America, or you can just hike from wherever you are remotely.
By participating in this year's Hike-A-Thon, you'll have the opportunity to improve your own health, build community, and advocate for more green time and less screen time. To join us this October, you'll sign up online through our event page. You'll log miles from wherever you are, and you can participate as an individual or as part of a team. There's no obligation to fundraise, and there's no cost to register.
Looking forward to seeing you on the trail this October.
So it is nationwide or worldwide?
Worldwide, technically.
Do you have an idea of how many people participate?
Ooh, that's a great question. We'll have to do a fact check. Sonia's more the Hike-A-Thon wizard behind all this stuff, but I think we had around 3,000 people last year.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Participate. Yeah, it's been pretty, I think the first year was like 200 people, and then it was like 400 people, and then maybe 1,500, and I think it was high 2,000s or 3,000 or something like that, I think, participating last year.
And bigger and better this year.
Yeah. And I will add that we have, our title sponsor is Fjällräven. I don't know if you've heard of them.
Of course, yeah.
They're like a Swedish, for people that don't know. They're like a Swedish outdoor apparel company.
Backpacks, apparel, all that, right.
They make these cool like little square backpacks that have become popular with kids, but they also make really hardcore outdoor gear and stuff. But basically, they're our title sponsor, and they have been for the last 3 years. And they have consistently done, and will do this year, hiking incentives. So let's say you hike, I think we're still working out the specifics on what that's going to look like, but if you hit 50 miles, you're going to get some money to put toward Fjällräven gear in store. If you hit 100 miles, you get a higher
incentive in that. But they have a shop down in Del Mar.
They have a shop down in Del Mar, One Paseo.
Yeah. Well, what a great partnership. How did that come about?
That was just kind of sort of like the other stuff, sort of word of mouthy. I don't know if that's a term, word of mouthy, but
we'll use it.
We went in. We just like once when we knew I had heard of them. I wasn't too familiar with their stuff, but we went into the shop when they first opened in One Paseo. Developed a relationship with Dave, the manager there, and basically we're like, do you want to participate in this Hike-A-Thon? I think it was like we were like 5 months out of our first Hike-A-Thon, and Dave was enthusiastic and wanted to get involved. And so we did it on the store level the first year. Then the second year went regional with them. I think the West Coast and some of the Rocky Mountains is I think we had 8 cities participate, and then it's kind of grown from there. Now we're partnering with Fjallraven, but they have stores in 38 cities across North America, and so every store becomes basically like a hub for the Hike-A-Thon.
Gosh, what a great partnership!
Yeah, it's been pretty
good
amazing
for you guys, and really to help spread the word.
Thank you. Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to add?
I think that's it. I think I feel pretty.
Well, I do appreciate the honesty, the insight, you sharing your story and the backstory and all the good stuff that Nature Unplugged is doing. So if we wanted to find out more about, the Hike-A-Thon and some of the programs and curriculum that we could apply to our lives and our classroom and our businesses, where would we do that?
Yeah, great question. I was going to add that. So we do have a website. We're on the internet. It's natureunplugged.com. So there you can find all our educational resources, materials, upcoming educational programs, workshops, outings, things like that. And from there, you can find more information on how to sign up for the Hike-A-Thon. And I think that would be my one call to action. If you're just curious about getting more involved or want a little extra incentive to get out and walk this October, sign up for the Hike-A-Thon. Again, free to register, no obligation. I also want to share. I'll share a couple of my resources.
Oh, yes, please do.
So check out the website.
Bag of tricks here.
I have a few gifts for you. So let's see. This is an idea what this is. This is a cell phone sleeping bag.
Oh, all right.
You could use it for other stuff.
Cell phone sleeping bag. All right.
Sleeping bag for you.
Appreciate it.
You could use it for other stuff, but that's it's basically when we do educational programs and outings, everyone puts their phones in that before we begin, and it's an added. Obviously, you can still access your phone, but it's an added level of intentionality.
I know a lot of classrooms are starting to have the kids check their cell phones at the door, basically before class starts.
I would highly recommend that to any, school administrators out there. It's
You too could own.
Yeah. I mean, I think just
a cell phone sleeping bag.
No phones in the classroom.
Yeah.
This is, we'll throw this one. This is Ashes in the Ocean. This is like the one about my dad. Deep dive story. If you want to get into it, no pressure. You know what I mean? I'm just throwing this out there.
All right.
And this is the Nature Unplugged book. Experience Nature Unplugged.
We have this at the office.
You got this in the office.
Yeah,
well, you can have a personal copy.
And I can have a personal copy on my bookshelf.
Yep. And then
I have a few people that I might have to share this with after I read it and take some of it in as well.
Yeah. This is our work. This is more, it's similar to that, but more actionable workbook stuff.
Oh, I appreciate it.
For you to check out as well.
On all my podcasts, I've never yet received a present. So I thank you.
There you go.
I thank you very much.
Yeah,
and now I think I actually just have to not go back to the office and spend the rest of the afternoon outside.
I think they'll understand.
Don't you think? I think so. Yeah. I appreciate it. I really do. It was such a pleasure to have you on. And I know we just touched the surface of so many things, but now everyone knows where to find you.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. I appreciate the opportunity, and thanks for having me here.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in, and thanks to our sponsor, Max Lux. Join us again for the next episode of Encinitas Chamber Chat Live. For more information on the Chamber and its activities, please visit encinitaschamber.com.